John, I've been trying to determine who said what to who when. You got any ideas about that?
Man, oh man, we got a show tonight.
Yeah.
I think the audience and you are both going to be stunned when you see what happened in the last week. This
Well, I'm
is uh,
sure.
this is another earth-shattering break this week. One more time.
Yeah. And I'm sure I have no doubt about that. You never disappoint. You've assembled another one of your amazing deep dives into data taken directly from the WHO, the World Health Organization. We're not questioning public health policy. We're just reviewing data from it. We're questioning the logic is what we're questioning. And I do like to remind our viewers, John, that they can always watch our simulcasts on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. How's the channel doing?
Actually, it's been doing very well. Your subscribers and your patrons have been incredibly generous to me. I mean, your channel is approaching 120,000 subscribers now, I think. And I have about 30 something thousand, 31, 32,000 subscribers. And most of my subscribers, I think, have come from your base coming over to my channel to check out this specific body of work that I've been focused on. And your patrons have been incredibly generous supporting my work. So I can't thank your audience enough. Basically, your audience has become my audience, and I can't thank you for your generosity. I can't thank you enough. So I'm very grateful both to you and to your audience.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you saying that. And I really want to thank the audience as well. This is, we're right now in this moment where a lot of YouTube channels have been purged. The common factor seems to be this assault that the BBC, Twitter, Facebook, NBC now, the mainstream news is making against this 17th letter of the alphabet. We got a lot of trolls here, and see, they're they won't let up. It's so sad to me, John. I pity these people who think that Jake Morphonios exposed you. We've been through numerous episodes where we've shown that Jake Morphonios was obviously lying, never presented any evidence to back up the ridiculous claims that he made in that video we did with him like 2 years ago. You, however, have stayed on the Las Vegas investigation, and I want to really thank the audience, viewers, sponsors. Nobody donates anything here. So if people are perusing the comments and they see some negative comment about anybody asking for or receiving donations, the only people that I know that receive donations are the Clinton Foundation and some of the people who are laying on the streets of New York City. You and I are engaged in running a video subscription service, and people who value the information, want to learn more about the details of what we're digging into, they become sponsors on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsourcethetruth. Now, I just want to give you a little background, John, because I was just reviewing some of the YouTube comments from earlier today. I'm firmly convinced that whoever is behind these social engineering operations is very intimidated by the fact that for 4 years I've been shining a light directly on it, talking about it, detailing what they do. So there's a little bit of a psychological game going on where people are trying to say that I'm a social engineer. You and I have presented tons of evidence to back up everything that we've discussed. And in the case of the hypothesis that you've built over 3 years regarding the Las Vegas shooting, the evidence continues to get stronger. Just as it does with your investigation into the data from the World Health Organization, I remain firmly convinced that this crackdown on 17 Anon was planned from the beginning. And I have never supported that thing. I don't blindly follow anonymous sources. I don't go where everybody else is going simply because they say that's what we have to do. And I feel badly that people who want to talk about that have been kicked off of YouTube. But I am very convinced that this is a focused attack on everybody who was following and supporting that movement.
Well, I think in general, The thing that I find disturbing is probably the same thing that, Ted Cruz found disturbing, and Josh Hawley in the Senate. And again, you had Dr. Ron Paul on the show. What was it, yesterday, right? Within the
Yeah.
last 24 hours, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And for the audience, if you guys haven't seen that show, Jason had Dr. Ron Paul on the show, the original Dr. Ron Paul, the real one. Yeah, and he was my candidate for president, by the way. I love this guy.
He's great.
So yeah, he's fantastic. So talking with him, and he was talking about a number of different aspects of this thing. But again, all we're doing really is looking at data from the CDC and data from the WHO and data from Johns Hopkins. And as far as forming an opinion, you have an opinion, I have an opinion. And what Dr. Paul was saying is, I understand YouTube is a private company. Google's a private company. And like a newspaper publisher, they may not, like me. They may not like you. And so we're relegated to the back pages. And we're always, next to the story about the turtle that escaped, and we're not on the front page. And, and the favorite authors are the ones that are on the front page, and we're just not those people, right? That's ABC, CBS, NBC, et cetera. Yeah. So I get his point, and it's a tricky thing. And then when you've got firms like Twitter that are starting to censor Kayleigh McEnany,
that's crazy.
Well, yeah, because she's, counting on this. Again, the slippery slope, I really think, was broached when your friend Laura Loomer was denied access to the internet by an internet service provider because of her
Comcast
platform. Right. And so I think you broached on this in your interview with Dr. Paul, which is, so if I'm having a conversation on my cell phone, is Verizon going to step in and say, hey, you said something in there that was, and speaking of this, by the way, I can't comment on my own videos on my channel and say what I want to say.
What do you mean? Why?
They're deleted.
Wow.
If I use the names of certain people who are now serving time that used to play a gynecologist on television, if I say that name in the comments deleted. I put it in, I hit submit, and a minute later it's just gone like it was never posted.
I'll tell you, man, it's amazing, John. I see the comments and the people who are here for every show, and it's like a different set of idiots depending on who's on the show. If we've got David Hawkins, there's one set of idiots. If we've got you, there's another set of idiots. Or perhaps it's the same group of idiots using different fake names, but there's just no shortage of idiots here.
I'd like to think I have the best idiots, though. So please give me that.
It's a special brand of idiot.
Why don't we take a look at the deck? Because we've got so much content. I want the YouTube audience to get a sense. I want to do some bottom line upfront stuff and show you guys what we're going to do tonight on Patreon and Subscribestar.
Real quick, one last thing on this. I just want to point out to people that the BBC is in on this as well. Just letting everybody know that this is not, this is specifically to do with what the BBC describes right here. So if you're talking about channels that have been supporting that for the past, however long it's been around, that's what's been being purged. So if somebody's looking for some common thread there, it's kind of right on its face.
I'm not sure why a theory is dangerous. Is the theory that the Earth is flat, is that one dangerous too? And, what about the theory about unicorns?
I don't think it's actually dangerous. They want people to think it's dangerous so that they can then say, oh, it's got to be, banned from the internet.
Yeah, well, all right. This episode we titled Who Started This Thing into Who? And we've got just an unbelievable break that we're going to share on the patron-only hour. So the break is major, and I just uncovered it today. Took all week, and then today I got to it. Let's see, what time is it where you are? It's 6 o'clock. I got this, I don't know, 90 minutes ago. and worked it into the deck, and I was stunned. Like, I'm
And I
still shaking up.
specifically asked you not to tell me what
To
it
tell
is, so I
you,
don't
you don't
know.
know. Yeah, and I just discovered this about 90 minutes ago with a cup of coffee in my hand, and I got shaken by it. I mean,
Wow.
this is big. So we're going to go through it, and I'll give everybody a hint as we go through the deck. All right, let's go to the next page. Okay, bottom line up front. This is from the CDC, and these are weekly deaths from coronavirus since August the 1st in the USA.
Going down.
Well, right. And so you want to look for a trend here. So we can say comfortably there appears to be going down. We can also say comfortably that it's going down week over week over week.
Yeah.
It's going down more and more and more, right? So it's not just
Yes.
going down, it has never gone up since August 1st. It has progressively and steadily gone down. That's the kind of information I wish Kayleigh McEnany had in her hands, and she could get in front of the podium. But Twitter would tell her that this is dangerous because this is not what Dr. Fauci said. But this is I just pulled this from the database. In fact, if you go to the next page, I think you're going to see the data, or two, 3 pages later. Well, this is the dashboard. These are my key performance indicators. So while everybody on TV is looking at things like cases and hospitalizations and how many bedpans did we use and things like that, I'm interested in how many people are dying. And so we're going to look at this dashboard of key performance indicators and drill into that. We're going to look at the data. So again, I don't have an opinion. I don't have a theory. There's nothing dangerous here because it's all CDC data and WHO data. We just make it colorful. We just put it into charts so that people can understand it. Okay?
I just want to point out real quick, John, just like we were just kind of having a conversation about how there's this push-pull between what's going on with this verboten theory, we see the same British dopes who have pedophilia statues on their headquarters repeatedly telling us, coronavirus infection still rising rapidly. This is more,
Not just,
look at that.
You're going to see more of it. In the deck, I've got a whole bunch of this. In fact, you're going to see what's happening globally. I like taking a more global perspective. So these are the key performance indicators we're going to drill into. But this is the big story right here. This is the big story. This was published a while ago. And this is a story that I'm trying to remember. I think this was from Gateway Pundit, I believe. I'll double check it in a minute.
Looks like Daily Caller. Yeah, Daily
could be
Caller.
Daily Caller. All right. So the gist, yep, there you go, Daily Caller. So the gist of the story is that China was not the entity that notified the WHO of what was happening in Wuhan. And what do you mean? So who the hell told the WHO what was happening in Wuhan? Hungary? Algeria? Right? What do you mean China didn't tell the WHO? Well, did anybody peel the onion? Did anybody look into this? Did anybody dig in and say, what do you mean China didn't tell the WHO? Who told the WHO? If it wasn't China, France? Who? France called up the WHO and said, hey, I think you guys need to go to Wuhan and check out what's happening in Wuhan. How does this happen? So I wanted to scratch the surface here and find out what's underneath this. What's going on? How did the WHO find out what was going on in Wuhan? That's the big break. This is huge. So let's go to the next page. All right. Also, a follow-up from one of the shows we did a few weeks ago after we did the show with UK Column with David Scott and Alex Thompson. David was telling us a little bit about this program that they had up in Scotland that they were trying to introduce where they basically ease people into dying. And they called it, the pathway to something or other, pathway to heaven or whatever the hell the name was. But that kind of got me started digging into, well, what might the motive be for all of these nursing home deaths? And everybody was talking about the 39,000 for intubation. And we did a show a couple weeks ago where we said, no, 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 no. The 39,000 is an amuse-bouche. That's nothing. That's a tiny little appetizer thing.
Yeah.
What they're after are your assets. And if they can ring up 200,000, 300,000 in medical bills and you're on Medicaid, well, they just got your 40 acres up in Vermont.
Wow.
And this article confirms that. So the article that was in the deck that can Medicaid really come after your house when you die? Yes. And look at the date. This is a long time ago. This is 2014, 2016,
Oh, yeah, wow.
something like that.
Look at that.
Okay. So this isn't current. This has been around for a while. So now imagine that, your grandma is in the nursing home and she's on Medicaid and she's got, 7 acres in Maryland on the shore somewhere, but that doesn't generate any income, but it's worth a couple $100,000. Well, the state's got it now. Now the state owns that asset.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So that confirms, I like doing the follow-up and showing you that, that we're not just coming up with these crazy ideas. This stuff is, this is in the Atlantic. Let's go to the next page.
Yeah. So, unless people think the Atlantic is a conspiracy theory.
Not yet. All right. And then one of the other
Sorry,
things
John,
Dr.
I don't mean to interrupt, but just real quick, I meant to share this with you because it pertains to what you were just talking about. We spoke about how Cuomo had somehow done something to reconfigure Medicaid in January. There was this article in the New York Times. Have you seen this? How to fix a $6.1 billion budget hole?
Yeah, we were talking about
going
this
on
for some
here.
time. And everybody kept talking about the 39,000. And I'm telling you, the 39,000 is just the starter. It's nothing. They're after the big money. And that's why you put somebody into this type of care for 2-3 weeks, bill's going to be $180,000, $200,000.
Yeah. We even had a viewer tell us that he recovered from coronavirus, but has a huge bill now. Yeah. $300,000.
And Dr. Paul was saying on your show yesterday that the government's involvement in education, the socialization of education, the government's involvement in this healthcare stuff. And when you asked Dr. Paul about, what do you think about the conversation we had with Dershowitz about, forcing injections on people? And he's like, man, we're right on the edge here of the Constitution and liberties and rights and all that. And you have to ask, does the government really belong in this? And so one of the, we've been talking about Walter Reed. Does the government really need to be doing bio level 4 research on deadly viruses? And is the Army the organization you want doing that research? And why? Why does the Army need to be working with all these deadly viruses for? Why is that really necessary? So let's go on. I don't want to harp on this, but this ties into what Dr. Paul was saying. All right. In the news, new lockdowns, China, Europe, UK, Germany. Let's go to the next page. All over the world, we're locking down again. The second wave of COVID is smashing Europe as France brings in curfews. Spain is shutting bars. Portugal is declaring a state of calamity. Wow. Holy mackerel. What the hell? I thought this thing was going away. I guess not. Let's keep going. I thought it was going away. I guess not. All right.
This was just this morning.
And Ohio, infections are surging. I did a video this past week that takes a closer look at Ohio and Governor DeWine, who seems to think that we're not going to achieve herd immunity until we have a vaccine. So he's not ready to reopen until there's a vaccine. And we've been waiting a long time for the herpes virus vaccine. We don't have one of those yet, right? So he may be waiting a long time. Let's go to the next page. All right. So this is where the story is going to end up taking us. When we go patron only, the question is, well, what was the source of the WHO? If it wasn't China, how was the WHO notified of what was happening in Wuhan? From here.
This is
From here.
what
This
is
is where
this?
it came from. Oh, just a building next door to Harvard. We'll take a closer look at this when we go patron only. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Data, straight from the CDC. Let's look at school-age children and zoom in, and let's look at 5 to 14 on the left-hand side of that table. 5 to 14 years old. All right, so that's kindergarten to middle school. 37 are dead in the United States. And then if you go middle school to college, 15 to 24, there's 374 people dead in the entire United States. But high schools and colleges, universities are panic-stricken. And in fact, the entire university system in the United States appears to be ready to topple, right? And there's 374 people between 15 and 24 years old that have passed away. So when you zoom out and you look at the big table of numbers, zoom out a little bit so that everybody sees the whole table.
John? Whoops.
Yeah.
You still there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Lost your sound for a minute.
Okay. So when you look at the whole table like that, it doesn't necessarily jump off the page at you, right? So the story, I always say the story is going to be in the data, the story's in the numbers, right? But when you look at it like this, the story doesn't jump off the page. If you go to the next page in the deck, there you go. This is what I do, is I make the story from the data. So I take the data and I say, well, what is the data telling me? Well, when I look at that table, I guess like in the movie The Matrix, this is kind of what I see immediately. I look at the table of numbers and I'm like, what do you mean? There's like 500 young people dead? Less than 500? So I make the charts so that other people can see what I see quickly, easily, without a whole lot of explanation. Now, people have said to me, if I were going to send one chart to my congressman, if I were going to send one chart to my senator, if I were going to send one chart to my favorite other podcaster besides Jason Goodman on YouTube, to say, hey, have you seen this? You need to have John Cullen on your show to show everybody what's really going on with this. I think this is incredibly powerful. When you consider what I'm hearing about universities in an NCAA and not playing football, aren't most of the guys playing football 24 and younger in college? I mean, how many years can you get left back? Right, you're not still in college when you're 20. You're not still in college playing football when you're 25. You better not be.
Could be.
No, I don't think so. So I think this is very powerful. Let's go to the next page if we can. Before we go patron only, we're going to have to wrap this up. But these are the statistics, these are the facts coming from the CDC that nobody seems to be willing to, hold Fauci's feet to the fire on and say, well, is this true? This is what their system says. So but this doesn't seem to be the way you're telling the story. Governor DeWine in Ohio is talking about the young people and people under 30. He clearly doesn't have any data. All right. Let's go to the next slide real quick, and then we're going to have to wrap up and go to our patron only hour.
What's going on right now, John, is there's so many fake accounts in the chat trying to distract my attention to make it difficult for me to run the show. I think it's obvious to people who have brains that that's happening, but yes, please carry on.
Mm-hmm. All right, so back to the data again. When we look at the data straight from the CDC, this was just updated a day or two ago, and now you go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide in the deck. There you go. All right. We did a show the weekend of 4th of July. And on the weekend of 4th of July, I pointed out that we had been declining in the United States in weekly deaths since like May or late April. deaths have been going down, 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 down. And immediately after that, they started to go back up. So we kind of called the low in that show, which was 4th of July weekend. Well, the peak was August 1st, the week that ended August 1st. And since August 1st, so again, I'm just looking at the data from the CDC. The chart that you see in front of you, this blue chart, is showing you that since August 1st, deaths have been declining week over week over week in the United States. That is fantastic news. And again, the fact that Kayleigh McEnany doesn't know this or isn't trumpeting this and saying, these are the kind of results you're looking for, folks. Since the beginning of August, so all of August, all of September, and as deep as we are into October, deaths have been decreasing every single week.
Yeah.
What more would you ask for than that?
Not according to Cuomo. He says you got to mask up and shut the place down again.
Right. So again, these are the facts coming from the CDC. And again, all I tend to measure are deaths. I'm not interested in hospitalizations or cases. And the reason is when I go to places like Nigeria and Cambodia and Laos, there's so few people dying. It doesn't appear that dying is a necessity with this thing. Like the president. The president had it for a couple days, and next thing you know, he's bouncing around like he's as good as new.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to die. So
now, John, I need to pause you here because I just looked at the time and I didn't realize how far along we are. I've been so busy trying to shut down the amazing amount of trolls and fake commenters. I mean, look, if the information that you and I were presenting were innocuous, incorrect, or useless, why would anyone who has time to do this, to come into a YouTube chat and write this type of idiotic stuff? It's people who don't want viewers to sponsor the show that we're about to begin on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, and Patreon and Subscribestar/crowdsourcethetruth. So we're going to look forward to seeing everybody there on Patreon and Subscribestar. Anybody sees a comment that says, why hasn't Jason been blocked? That is so far from the truth. John, we've been shut down. We've been blocked. The Vimeo channel was shut down less than 12 hours after we published a story asking if this Falcon guy was being socially engineered or as part of a social engineering operation. That was shut down right away. And Vimeo is owned by Barry Diller, who we've been talking about quite a bit. So it's a lot of really silly comments happening here. And what we're going to do is carry on the sponsor-only show where none of these fake people will be. And I'll see